Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. This is episode number 90 of the series as we're heading towards, holy crap, the 100th episode, just a few releases from now. Although, talk about all the supplemental .1, .2 episodes. We've actually gone over 100 at this point. But as we're getting towards that far end of the collection here, not focusing on the more easily found items, I found an item here that I never thought I'd get to actually own. I'd only sort of admired it from afar, that I've finally been able to add to my collection that I want to highlight in this episode. It's not going to be one that's for everybody, specifically because of the price tag attached. I happen to find a good deal, but it is a Star Wars home video release, or at least a release that includes Star Wars. So, let's sort of flash back to 2004. Star Wars, as a franchise, has had DVD releases prior to that point, but it's been prequel stuff. The original trilogy had languished on VHS and Laserdisc and so on through most of its life cycle. And on home video, we hadn't seen a DVD release yet. Finally, that changed in 2004, and we got this, which is the original trilogy set from 2004, which included DVD versions with updates to the films, yet again, of A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, plus a bonus disc, which included, among other things, Empire of Dreams. We've looked at that in previous episodes. There was also, of course, a full-screen version of that same thing. We then saw a reissue of those same film discs, without the bonus disc at all, in 2005, again in widescreen, and then with a full-screen counterpart here. Going for that whole, it's not silver, it's a platinum, which is better than gold, so widescreen getting platinum, or silver, and gold, maybe it's meant to be bronze, being what they use for full screen. In 2006, we saw a re-release of them yet again, a reissue of those same discs again, this time with new bonus discs with the so-called unaltered version of the trilogy, which can be found in the widescreen limited edition version, or in a full screen limited edition version. And if you were to buy them from Best Buy, you could get them in that Best Buy Collector's Tin, which is the only way that that was available in 2006 as a set, as opposed to individual releases. But fear not, if you wanted them as a boxed set, 2 years later, in 2008, they did skip 2007, which is odd because it was an anniversary year, but in 2008, you could pick up the original trilogy as a box set with those slim cases, but essentially identical releases to 2008. So the exact same film discs for A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi were released on DVD and then reissued in 2004, 2005, 2006, and 2008. Eventually, they would be supplanted in 2013 by DVD copies in those Blu-ray DVD combo packs of the Blu-ray edits of the films, which made their debut in 2011. But 4 different releases, just between 2004 and 2008, 7 releases, if you count the fact that all but the 2008 one had a widescreen and full-screen version of it, of the exact same DVDs for each film. Well, it turns out, 2010 brought us yet another reissue of the DVD version, the 2004 version, of A New Hope. That copy of A New Hope was available as part of a massive DVD set, which is very heavy. This. Got Marilyn Monroe there on top of the 20th Century Fox logo. You go on the other side and it's Darth Vader, baby. And then you got Butch Cassidy and Sundance there, or the Sundance Kid. Nothing on top. Oh my goodness. Legalese on the bottom. And the side, essentially a slipcover for the parts of it to go into here. What this is, you can see it up there at the top, is the 20th Century Fox 75th Anniversary Collection. This is a box set of 75 movies that span from 1935 to 2009, this was released in 2010, that span the breadth and scope of the successes of 20th Century Fox as a film studio from its inception in 1935 up through what at the time was present day, 2009, 2010. Now, as far as what's inside it, this is what was originally on the spine when it was initially packaged, but you're supposed to peel it off so that you can reveal the Butch and Sundance image there. This breaks down what films are in it. Again, there are a lot of them. I'll try to go very quickly here. But it starts out by saying, up here, 20th Century Fox 75th Anniversary Collection, 75 years of groundbreaking excellence. Throughout its celebrated history, 20th Century Fox has been a remarkable source of creativity and innovation. If they do say so themselves, right? Committed to the highest standards of craftsmanship, the studio has been acknowledged time and again by critics, audiences, and of course, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. That's the Oscars. This spectacular collection of 75 specially selected films includes some of the world's most acclaimed works, from such beloved classics as An Affair to Remember, to iconic blockbusters like Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope, to the epic adventure Avatar, which broke the mold of filmmaking altogether. With 8 of the studio's Best Picture Oscar winners, and a wealth of movies from every genre, this extraordinary DVD set is a wonderful addition to any film lover's collection. As to what specific films it includes, for the 1930s you have 3, Cavalcade, Steamboat Round the Bend, and The Little Princess. The 1940s are then represented by The Grapes of Wrath, Blood and Sand, How Green Was My Valley, Oxbow Incident, The Song of Bernadette, Laura, Miracle on 34th Street, the original, Gentleman's Agreement, and 12 O'Clock High. The 1950s are represented by All About Eve, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The Robe, The 7-Year Itch, The King and I, Love Me Tender, An Affair to Remember, South Pacific, and The Diary of Anne Frank. The 1960s are represented by The Hustler, The Longest Day, Cleopatra, Zorba the Greek, The Sound of Music, Fantastic Voyage, The Sand Pels, The Planet of the Apes, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and Hello, Dolly. The 1970s, where A New Hope is going to fit in, includes MASH, Patton, The French Connection, The Poseidon Adventure, The Phantom of the Paradise, Young Frankenstein, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, The Omen, Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope, Norma Rae, Alien, and all that jazz. The 80s are then represented by Cocoon, Raising Arizona, Wall Street, Big, Die Hard, and Working Girl. The 1990s are then represented by Home Alone, The Last of the Mohicans, Mrs. Doubtfire, Speed, Waiting to Exhale, Independence Day, The Crucible, The Full Monty, There's Something About Mary, and Boys Don't Cry. And then finally, the 2000s are represented by X-Men, Castaway, Moulin Rouge, Ice Age, Minority Report, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, Sideways, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Walk the Line, The Devil Wears Prada, Little Miss Sunshine, Night at the Museum, Juno, Slumdog Millionaire, and Avatar. 75 films, some of which had never been released on DVD before, all put into one big box set with matching labels. In the case of films that had already been released on DVD, for the most part, what we see here is it's the exact same DVD in terms of content, but the label has been swapped from that original release label, taken away, to now having a label that matches the rest of this set. Now, unfortunately, what that means is that in celebrating the 75th anniversary of 20th Century Fox, wherein they probably, if they're talking about 1977, should have a DVD copy in here of the original version of A New Hope, they instead just, again, slap a new label on a reissue of a previously existing DVD, and the version of A New Hope that is actually in this set is the 2004 DVD version. Not the special edition from 97, not the original from 77. The Blu-ray version wasn't even out yet. That wouldn't come until the year after this set was released. So we have what is at the time the most recent version of A New Hope in this set, representing cinematic history. Personally, I and a lot of others who have picked up this set or have even perused what's in this set have made the argument that, yeah, it really should have been a DVD copy of the original version of the film. But that would have required them to actually make one, outside of the bonus disc in 2006 and 2008, which would not have cut it for this set because those were letterboxed and not cleaned up at all. Now, the package itself, it's a little heavy, has 3 different sort of albums in here to hold the discs and a little book about it. I'll go ahead and pull those out and show you those individually. Once you pull them out, you got this nice empty case that is so much easier to hold because it's not weighted down. The book inside is pretty cool. It's this, very similar, 75 over the 20th Century Fox logo, has the title up there at the top, empty back. Then the spine there just reads 20th Century Fox 75th Anniversary Collection. And it's kind of oversized. You open it up, it has an opening quote, and it's got a little bit of background about the company. And then what it does is it breaks it down into different eras. and tells you a little bit about what the studio was going through in that era, and then every film gets a little even half a page to a 2-page spread about it, noting why it is included. This is the spread for A New Hope. The A New Hope one reads, it says 1977 up there at the top in gray, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. They actually use the whole title. In a galaxy not so far away, yeah, because that's not, cliche by this point. In a galaxy not so far away, a young filmmaker named George Lucas began production on an ambitious outer space saga. Initially, Lucas set out to write a single story, but as he states, quote, "It wasn't long after I began writing Star Wars, Episode 4, that I realized the story was more than a single film could hold." The seminal trilogy, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, 1977, Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, 1983, centered on Luke Skywalker, originally called Luke Starkiller, portrayed by Mark Hamill, Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, Darth Vader, voiced by James Earl Jones, and Soldier of Fortune, Han Solo, Harrison Ford. The 3 prequel episodes were released later in sequence. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, 1999, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, 2002, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, 2005. To design and oversee the vast effects needed to create the off-world setting, Lucas created the formidable Industrial Light and Magic Studio in 1975, initially in Los Angeles, but now located in Northern California. During its original release, Star Wars ran in numerous theaters for more than a year, resulting in nearly $200 million box office revenue by the end of 1977. Astronomical numbers for its time. Adjusted for inflation, Star Wars places second in overall gross domestic box office to date. Then underneath it has a quote. They always have a quote from the movie. In this case, of all quotes to use, it's, "I've got a bad feeling about this." Why that one? Whatever. And then you've got your individual albums. This is the first one. I believe that's Bette Davis from All About Eve, but I'm not 100% certain. I haven't seen the film myself, and I'm not familiar with a lot of that earlier age of filmmaking's stars. But I will be, because I'm going to watch this entire set sometime soon. Down at the bottom says 1935 to 1960. 1935 to 1960 on the edge there, along with that 75th anniversary logo, and Book 1 up at the top. Backside is blank. Then as you open it, let me kind of stand here to show you. You got this flimsy, odd, kind of clear paper in the front, which is interesting. And it's got a list of all the films that are in it. Then it just goes year to year, labeled with the year and the name, giving you the individual discs. Interestingly, every once in a while you run into an odd one, like Grapes of Wrath had kind of a weird DVD release back in the day as far as the way that it was set up. You can't put a label on one side of it, you need both. So it's in here without a label. The other ones are essentially one-sided, usually dual-layer DVDs. And it just goes and goes and goes and goes until you get to the back. Diary of Anne Frank's another of those. Nothing in the back, it just closes up. I'll skip the one with the New Hope to start with here and go straight to the third volume, right, which is 1986 through 2010. Again, the last film in it is from 2009. We have, of course, the logo here, in this case, with the hero of Avatar flying there. Got the name again up there at the top. Spine very similar. Book 3 up at the top. That logo. And of course, 1986 to 2010. And then the interior is set up the exact same way. Then we have Book 2, which has A New Hope in it, the one in the middle. That's this. And sure enough, Darth Vader gets to be on the cover. Just like that side of the box. So we have the name up there. 75, 20th Century Fox, in front of it, Darth Vader. These were actually limited edition posters as well. 1961 to 1985. And nothing on the back. And the side, same deal, says Book 2 in this case, but 61 to 85. Same interior layout. And you just flip, 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 flip to 1977, represented only by A New Hope. Some years had no representation, some years have multiple films representing them. They just went for what were sort of the standout films and what could tell you about sort of the nature of the company. But then you pull out the disc, and we're used to seeing a different look for A New Hope. But again, if this was a one-sided disc, they wanted to put a label on it that would match this set. So this copy, this unusual copy of the 2004 DVD version of A New Hope, looks like this. That 75th anniversary logo up at the top. Lucasfilm, 20th Century Fox, DVD, the little legalese and whatnot, and then just Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope. For comparison, of course, this is the new one in here in 2010. This is the original right here. Okay, so vastly, vastly different. You might say, well, black background, that looks a lot like what we saw with those copies in 2013. It should go without saying that these aren't the same, but just for the sake of comparison, again, that's 2010, that's 2013. In a lot of ways, what they've done here is very similar to what they did with the Clone Wars, right? When the Clone Wars was being released as individual seasons, it had one type of art, and the art for one season would tend to match itself, but not necessarily match the art for the next seasons on the disc labels. Then when eventually they put out that giant years 1 through 5 collection, the collector's edition, they had the same characters on the artwork, but they changed the background so that there was a uniform look throughout that set. It's the same thing they're doing here for this 20th Century Fox 75th anniversary set. So this is the same content we got several times over, but with a label that is only part of this set and a copy of this film that is only part of this set. Now, as far as getting your hands on one of these gigantic bad boys here, that's going to be a little bit difficult. The initial retail price for this set, given the number of discs, given this very nice packaging here, and frankly the weight of the thing probably, the initial retail price of this 75th anniversary collection was $500. That's right, $500 for this sucker. Now, fortunately, I happen to find this at a deep discount because I just did a search on Amazon, and it turns out that that exact item was showing up with Prime shipping, which is sweet, right? Got here very quickly, for about $160, $170. So we're talking about a third of retail price. I would assume maybe some of them are still up there if you're looking for it. I would assume that this probably came from some seller who just hadn't sold all their stock and it was just stored with Amazon so it could ship with Prime. But brand new, about $170 as opposed to $500. Still, $170 for one set of DVDs, kind of a lot of money. In my case, it was basically me sitting at the computer, this very computer here, looking on Amazon, seeing it, realizing that we could probably afford it, but it would just make buying other fun stuff a little tight for a short time. And turning to my wife and basically saying, because she was sitting across the room on the bed, honey, if I were to find something very hard to find, not something I ever thought I could get, but that is really, really deeply discounted, should I get it? And she knew instantly I was talking about something for the Star Wars Home Video Collection, because that's usually when I take that kind of tone. And she just kind of says, well, what is it? I said, well, it's this DVD set that includes a copy of Star Wars that I don't have, that I'd like to have for my collection, that originally cost $500, and it's on here for about $170. And without hesitation, her answer was, you better get it. I'm like, yes, ma'am. So I went ahead and ordered it, and sure enough, now it is here within the collection. Just a lucky find on Amazon for something I didn't expect to ever get to own. But you'll run into that, whether it's eBay or Amazon. Every so often, a deal will appear that is just too good to pass up on something that just costs way too much otherwise. Right now, I'm still waiting to see that limited edition signed 500 copies only Attack of the Clones novelization from 2002 to wind up being out there for a reasonable price. Right now, there are several on eBay for like $800 or something like that. I'm not paying several $100s for one book. Thankfully, I've already got a signed copy of that book. It's just a signed copy of the regular hardback signed by Salvatore and Christensen, so I think I'm good. But that's still one thing I'd like to have for the collection someday if I can find it for a decent price. In this case, this was a great find for something that now can be part of the home video library and that I've been able to feature for you, and that thankfully got into my collection before I did version 3.0 of that video timeline of Star Wars Home Video that I plan to record over the upcoming semester break. So I hope this has been an interesting look for you into a somewhat obscure Star Wars item, or item that includes Star Wars. Thank you for watching, and as always, may the Force be with the home video viewers.